What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the Thomas Gallery, and today I want to tell a little story about how I got into science. Now I'm telling a story mainly because, just to give a description of how fascinating the brain is and when given the right resources, how far it can reach. Okay, so the story about how I got into science started when I was about second or third grade. I want to say third grade specifically. I remember being in class and my teacher, Miss Jasper, rest in peace. Elementary school, we have, how most elementary schools, how they have all of your classes in one room, and your homeroom teacher is your teacher for all the subjects. You may go to other classes for other things, but your homeroom teacher is your main teacher. So yeah, which I still think is a very good way of learning. But anyway. So we're in science. So this is the science part of my class. And Miss Jasper asked us to take our science books out. So we do that. And what happened was she was teaching something. And here's the truth. Here's the actual truth. How my brain was turned on with science actually had nothing to do with what she was talking about in that particular subject on that particular day. Okay? So I opened up the science book and I'm flipping through the pages to get to the page that she wants us to go to so we can start our lessons. And in doing so, I stumbled upon the periodic table of elements. For those who don't know what the periodic table of elements is, if you ever go into a science classroom, no matter whether it be elementary school, junior high, high school, college, whatever, and you look on the wall, right, and you see this big chart with these squares, these squares, and these squares have small numbers all around it, and have large bold letters in the middle, and they go in numerical order from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all that stuff. That is the periodic table of elements. Actually, it says periodic table of elements, okay? And periodic table of elements is basically a table of elements, and they're called elements because these are the basic units of what we see today. These are the elements. These are these energies and these pieces of matter and mass that have come together, coalesced, for lack of a better word, coalesced to form the physical realm as we know it. Trees, plants, you, me, a table, this phone, the air we breathe, the earth we live on, the other planets, the stars, the galaxies, the clusters, superclusters, the entire universe itself. These elements have come together to form existence as we know it. Of course, it goes further down than that, but to put it in most basic sense, that's what it is. So I'm flipping through the pages of my book, of my science book, and I stumble upon this table. Okay, now keep in mind, the table had nothing to do with what she was going to teach that day. Actually, I can't even tell you what she was actually going to teach today, but that particular day. I don't remember. All I remember is when I get to that page, and maybe it was just the shape of the chart, or maybe it was the color. And most likely probably was the color. Me being an artist, it probably was the color, because if those who don't know, the periodic table elements are color coded, and they're color coded to give a distinction as to what element is what and where it goes and how it relates to other elements. So that's why it's color coded. So you won't be lost by what's the noble gases, what's the noble metals, things of that nature. The heavy elements, the what do you call them? Like the quote unquote precious metals. They're all color coded, so you can identify where they belong in relationship to the other elements. why one column is pink and one column is, and why the larger column is like blue, stuff like that. Okay, you can go online and look at this up too. Anyway, I get to the table, and immediately I pause. I stop flipping the pages, and I pause, and I'm looking at the chart. And I'm looking at the chart because I've seen the names before. I've seen oxygen, carbon, neon. When I saw Krypton, I was like, oh, Krypton, Superman, stuff like that. There's actually an element called Krypton. Okay, it's not green though. It's not green, so don't. No, the actual Krypton element is not green. Anyway, so I'm looking and say, okay, these are cool. I see hydrogen, which is the first one, helium, lithium, all these things, right? I'm looking. I see gold, I see silver, I see platinum, I see rhodium, I see lead. And I ask myself, why do some of these elements have different symbols for the names of the elements? For example, gold is spelled Gold. However, the symbol is AU. AU. And I said, why is that? So I'm looking, and all of a sudden, I see this element that I've never noticed before. I've never paid attention to before. And the reason why it caught my attention is because of how it's spelled. The spelling of the element, the spelling of the word, immediately caught my attention because my brain, at that particular time, my brain couldn't comprehend what word, like what sound would you make when these two letters are combined. And that element was, I think it was yttrium or ytterbium. And yttrium is spelled Yttrium, yttrium. And ytterbium is Ytterium. I'm sorry, Ytterbium. Okay, now when I saw this, my brain had it stopped. Cause I said, wait a minute. How would you pronounce a word that starts with YT? Like, it was weird. And even though I saw it, I didn't ask my teacher. I didn't say, I raised my hand and say, Miss Jasper, how do you pronounce this word? And what kind of word is this? Like, what language came up with a word that the first two letters are YT? Now, as I'm looking at the word, I'm saying yttrium, yttrium. Now, I didn't realize at that time that I was actually saying it correctly. That's actually how you say it, yttrium or ytterbium. I didn't realize that at that time I was saying the word correctly. I forgot what number it is. It's like on the lower part of the chart. It's one of the heavier elements. It's in the lower part. But I was like, how? Like, what word? What language comes up with this combination? Now, I didn't say that in a condescending way. I said it as a very intrigued way. I was actually intrigued. I was curious. It opened me up. Like, I was actually curious that I wanted to learn more about, not the element. Here's the thing. I didn't want to learn more about the element. I wanted to learn more about how you pronounce a word that begins with YT. Okay? And what that did for me is that made me, actually, sorry, yeah, third grade, yeah, I was about to say, like, that made me actually go back and want to study and memorize the entire periodic table of elements, because I wanted to see, okay, if there's a word like yttrium or ytterbium in the periodic table of elements that begins with YT, then what other elements here in this chart can I find that is spelled weird like ytterbium? Okay, so I'm looking, I see americium. I said, oh, americium looks like America. And I see Einstein. I see berkelium, Berkeley, California. I see Californium, California. I see what's it? Samarium, like samurai. I see. Of course, I see Neptunium. I see uranium. I see plutonium. Actually, it's uranium, Neptunium, plutonium. I said, oh, okay, the planets. Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. I see. See, what elements I saw that caught my attention? I saw. Of course, I saw Krypton because of Superman. Let's see, I saw. Well, that when I saw chlorine and sodium, that's when I realized that the table salt that you put in your food is NaCl, NaCl2. Sorry, sodium chloride, NaCl2. Because chlorine is one atom and chloride is two. And I saw myself say, you know what? This is pretty cool. So I wanted to study it. The second time I remember that science intrigued me actually happened at home. I was a little boy. I think I was in the third or fourth, the second or third grade again. I was at home, right? And I'm playing with my toys. For those who when kids used to have the big toy chest, I used to have the toy chest that shaped like a football. Who would old enough to remember that? You had the big toy chest shaped like a football. And you put all your toys inside the toy chest. You open up the top of the football lid and you dig your toys out. Right. So what happens is I'm in there playing with my toys, and I took all of my toys out the toy chest because I had a whole bunch of Legos, a whole bunch of He-Man toys and all that stuff. I was playing with them. But I always put my toys back though. I'm like, I'm a tidy person. So anyway. And somehow, as I dump my toys out to play with them, I find a big book. In my toy chest. Okay? And I said, okay, this is weird. I don't know why is there a book in here, because I didn't put a book in there, so I don't know how it's in here. And when I look in the book, I look at the title, and I realize the book belonged to my older brother. I know that because this particular subject, neither my younger sister nor I was studying this in school at the time, so I know it had to be my older brother. That's fine. So I find this book, and it's a physics book. I know because I read the word. I know how to pronounce words. I like to pronounce words and say words and stuff. I like words. So I knew it said physics. I knew the PH makes the F sound, so physics. It was a physics book in my toy chest. I was like, why is there a physics book in my toy chest? So what I did was I went past my toys. I didn't even bother to go out and ask my mother or my brother, like, who book is this? I didn't even bother to. What I did was I took the book, I sat on the bed, and I opened up the book and I read it. I read a physics book in like the second or third grade. Why? Because one, I was curious about why is there a physics book in my room, and I didn't take physics in elementary school. So I opened up the book and I see all these words and these pictures and these formulas. I didn't know what they were at the time. I didn't know about no force equals mass times acceleration. I didn't know about mass 1 plus mass 2, mass 1 times mass 2 divided by the radius squared. I didn't know nothing about that. That's the formula for gravity, for those who don't know. I didn't know about pi, 3.14159, all that stuff. I didn't know about that. So when I saw these letters and these numbers in these weird ways, I was trying to figure out what in the world is this? Like, what kind of language is this? With the letters and the numbers and the long line and letter up top and letter at the bottom, like there's no numbers. I saw equal sign, I saw a plus sign, I saw a multiplication sign, I saw equal sign, but I didn't see no numbers. I saw an equal sign and letters. I'm like, okay, what is this? So I read it. In second and third grade, I taught myself rudimentary physics by reading the information and just memorizing it, and then finding out, what these things meant. So the periodic table of elements, your terbium, and a physics book is what really is my conscious date of how I got into science. Now, I've always been into science, earth science, where you deal with plants and photosynthesis, and I've always loved that. I was always into that, even before that. But this is the first time where I can truly recall a passion building up inside me about science on a deeper level than just the water cycle. On those particular moments, it went deeper than just the water cycle and the different like plant cells, animal cells, and it went different than it went deeper than that. So like I would say third grade. 'Cause I remember in the periodic table of elements that happened in the third grade. So I would say from the third grade, that particular grade level, that particular year, those particular years were the intro to my passion. I've always loved science, but that was the intro into my passion for science. And from that point on, it has never stopped. I've always been adamant about science. When I see things, I see nature, I see the world, my brain doesn't just take it at a face value. My brain actually starts to dig into what makes that, because I've always been into what makes something exist. Like I did with the word. Like what makes a group of people come up with a word that begins with YT, and how do you pronounce a word that begins with YT? Ytterbium. So I've always been into breaking things down and finding out the nuances of how they come to be, or how they were made, or how they were created, and what brought about the mentality of saying, you know what, I'm going to create this idea, this word, this form, this theorem, this idea, and people are going to look at it and try to understand it. I've always been the kind, like science has made me become very analytical of my environment. I want to break things down and study it and put it back together, and really, they're not going to be able to explain, okay, why this. I do want to play video games. I will study a video game, the characters, how they move, and then I will implement it. So yeah. But that was my intro into my passion for science. I got other stories. I got like about math and all that stuff. So I got other stories. So hope you enjoyed my little story. Thank you all for listening. Leave a comment down below. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. I will catch you all later. Peace.